Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Annie Horner. I'm one of the programmers at Maysles Documentary Center, and we are so excited to be hosting the 12th annual Black Panther Party Film Festival. Can't believe it's been 12 years, even though it's been far beyond what I've experienced. We have several films that are available in our virtual cinema right now. That are all available on a sliding scale. Proceeds go towards supporting the Black Panther Party. You can also donate on our website to supporting commissary for political prisoners. Hit that donate link right in the middle of the page. It'll take you to the New York chapters page, and then you can donate through their page. All of those proceeds, again, go to helping the political prisoners. The films should be available through the end of this week, so be sure to catch those if you haven't already. And we have several wonderful panelists joining us this evening for a conversation. So without further ado, I will turn it over to BJ, who might be frozen. I'm going to give BJ approximately 5 more seconds. And then I'm going to turn it over to you, King, who's going to be moderating for us this evening.
Okay, I know what BJ's up to. He's holding out for a grand entrance. I know that's what he's going to do. So I'm just going to start and I'm going to hold it down. Thank you all for joining us for the 12th annual Black Panther Film Festival. This is a very unusual year, as you would guess, because normally we'd all be sitting in Maysles Cinema. We'd be raising a toast to Maysles for not only supporting us all these years, but also for the great work that Maysles Cinema has been doing. The Maysles brothers and their great documentaries, that would have been enough for them to sit back and rest on. But what they did was they went into Harlem and they set up their documentary center and their cinema programs, and they have been teaching media to young people in that area, turning out a whole next generation of folks, and then of course have opened their doors to film events of all kinds, the kinds of films that don't always get seen in the community, the kind that we need to see, and folks who make films who don't have the kind of voice that they should get. And so I'm a regular person there, not just around for the film festival every year. So we miss not being there, but we're going to bring it out to the people virtually, which, you know, when you're given lemonade, when you're given lemons, you make lemonade. And so by doing this virtually, we're hoping that we will be able to get the word out about Maysles, about the Black Panther Commemoration Committee and the Black Panther Film Festival. So that should be BJ's cue to come in, but the Black Panther Commemoration Committee is made up of veteran Black Panther Party members, and then people like me who are community workers for the Black Panther Party, who have continued the work through all of these years. One of our main focuses is the plight of the political prisoners, those who struggled in the past to deal with the same conditions that we have here today. And our panels are going to deal with that because we have 2 people who represent the modern era in terms of the kind of oppression that people faced, but who became leaders of movements and anti-police brutality struggles in their own right. So the festival started on Sunday, October 4th, and it's going to be going until the end of the month. And that means, and it's been extended, which is great for us because we wanted to have this go for as long as possible, and people can virtually see these films from the comfort of their own homes. The goal for this year's theme was point number 7 of the Black Panther platform. We want an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of Black people, other people of color, and all oppressed people inside the United States. Now, that was written in 1966, so you see how far we've gotten, but nothing has changed. The pressure is still on, and we're on the crest of a wave of another movement. The films that people can see, I'm going to just do a brief summary of those films, hoping that people will get a chance to check them out. The first one is Every Mother's Son, and that's by Kelly Anderson and Tammy Gold. That's from 2004. Anthony Baez, whose mother, Iris Baez, is here with us on the panel, died during a football game when an NYPD officer put him in a chokehold. Also in the film, Amadou Diallo was unarmed and shot at 41 times by police in his doorway. Gary Gideon Bush was pepper sprayed and shot while holding a small hammer, a religious hammer, though witnesses said he was no threat. Their stories are tragic. The courage shown by the mothers is heroic. As one witness says, As long as there is a mother, we'll continue to fight. We'll be hearing from Ms. Baez later. The next film is My People Are Rising by Rafael Flores, 2017. In an era of stark racial justice, Aaron Dixon dedicated his life to revolution, founding the Seattle Black Panther Party chapter in 1968 at age 19. He traces the course of his own radicalization and that of the generation of that time. Through his eyes, we see the courage and commitment of the young men and women who rose up in rebellion, risking their lives for human rights. The government tried to destroy the Black Panther Party and was complicit in the assassination of several Black Panther Party leaders. In the midst of the chaos, Seattle Black Panther Captain Aaron Dixon fought hard to save his own life while trying to establish a community movement in a region where white politics dominate.
It says your internet connection is unstable.
Here he is. Here he is. We can hear you. Are you good?
Oh, you heard that? Huh?
Yes, yes. So if you're on, we
So
kind of
far,
went directly to me, but I can stop at this moment and have you do
Yeah,
your thing.
right.
All right. So
Good.
veteran Black Panther Party member William B.J. Johnson.
Right.
You're on, BJ.
Okay, I just want to thank all the participants. I want to thank the folks. I want to thank all the participants. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the purpose of our festival is to give a true history of the Black Panther Party, which was destroyed by COINTELPRO. Oh, shit. I'm off. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, just go ahead, bro. We'll let you know if we can't hear you.
Okay, proceeds from our festival are used for commissary for our political prisoners. In this pandemic, they need it more now than ever. And aid to their families when needed. There are 10 veteran Panthers held captive in U.S. prisons for decades, some in solitary confinement for 25 years and more, just because of their political beliefs. So we received a letter from one of the political prisoners that said the funds that he received came on time as he was able to buy a pair of much needed sneakers. We were also able to supply funds for gas to an elderly 85-year-old mother of another prisoner so she could visit her son and bring her children. FYI, it's a 6-hour drive from Brooklyn to the prison. We have financially supported our Panther Cubs, children of Panthers, which some of them are children of political prisoners. Then we also support families of fallen comrades when needed. The theme of the Black Panther Party Film Festival this year is we want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of Black people and other people of color and all oppressed people. And this is what we wrote this in 1966, and it's still happening. I hope folks are staying safe. You can send a check or money order to National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party. I'm going to put it up in the chat also. P.O. Box 7978, Garden City, New York, 11530. Just mark in the memo of your money order check for political prisoners. Or you can go online at the National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party and donate there. Thank you very much. And thank Maysles for allowing us to do this here. I'm new to this, so go ahead, King, do your thing.
All right. Well, you fooled us. You fooled us. Plus, you know, he's being modest. We know better than that. He's always at the front introducing the films when we do it live. So he knows what's going on. So I did the first two films that we are highlighting during this festival. The next one is the First Rainbow Coalition, and that's by Ray Santisteban, and he did it just in 2020. So imagine this time and date: Chicago, 1969. Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, and we have brother Carlito Rovira, veteran from the Young Lords, who will be joining the conversation. So the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, the Young Patriots, who were a white activist group, united Blacks, Latinx, and poor whites to fight police brutality and bad housing in one of America's most segregated cities, Chicago. This film tells the story of collective action and tells the little known story of the political struggle in a unified, racially unified way with insight and urgency using archival footage and interviews with those who lived it. And so now we transition, and this is also going to happen in the conversation. We're going to go from the conditions that led to the formations, which was police brutality, and we're going to have Ms. Baez and Ms. Carr talk about that. Then we're going to go into the organizations that fought in order to eradicate this, and that's when we're going to have our conversation with Carlito Rovira and also with Sandy Shevack to talk about those organizations. And then we're going to move to the third round, which is the political prisoners, the plight of those who went to battle in order to change these conditions and now have found themselves locked up for years and years. And that takes us to our last film, Cruel and Unusual, by Vadim Jean in 2017, tells the story of the Angola three remarkable imprisoned, incarcerated men, Robert King, Herbert Wallace, and Albert Woodfox, who as Black Panther Party members inside have been fighting for justice since the early 70s in Angola prison, the notorious Angola prison in Louisiana. For decades, they were left forgotten in the depths of America's bloodiest prison. Between them, the Angola Three spent over a century in solitary confinement. Their struggle became an international scandal, and we will have conversations about that as well, Cruel and Unusual. So now let's turn to the first section, and you're going to hear me do this because the reason why we're doing this, as BJ said, is for the political prisoners. We're doing this to remember them, but to also financially support them. And so we're going to be asking you from time to time to go to naabpp.org and make a donation to the film festival in the name of the political prisoners, in the names of the families who have suffered, in the names of all people who have been part of the struggle, including those today. And so you will go to that website and there's a way to go online and make a donation. As we said, everything that goes above our minimal expenses here goes to the commissary. BJ told you some stories of how the money has helped the political prisoners over the last 12 years. So in looking at the families and the victims of police brutality for the longest time, I have created a little chart, and this is only looking at one form of abuse, and that is the chokehold. So work with me, in the modern era of computers, we have a version of software, it's 1.0, then 2.0 and 3.0. So I'm going to take you through the versions of the chokehold as they have happened through the years. Chokehold 3.0. Now notice I skipped 1 and 2. We'll get back to that. 3.0. Arthur Miller, June 1978 in Crown Heights, choked to death by the NYPD. 4.0. Michael Stewart, choked in 1983, choked to death. Very big case. When we get to 5.0, we get to the case at hand today. That's Iris Baez, whose son was killed in 1994. Chokehold 6.0, the focus of another one of our guests today, which was Eric Garner. And that case, we now have his mother here. That's from 2014. Now we go to 7.0, and that's George Floyd in 2020. We even have an 8.0, and that's Daniel Prude in Rochester, which happened this past March. So we're already up to 8 versions of that. And what do we think 2.0 is? 2.0, if you look at the old black and white films, you will see the police during the civil rights era using chokeholds on the civil rights protesters, including young people who were boycotting school. That's 2.0. What's 1.0? The noose of the lynching tree. So we keep in mind the long history of this. And now I want to focus on the 2 families that we have brought here. I'd like to first turn my attention to Iris Baez, whose son, Anthony Baez, as I said earlier, was killed by the NYPD with a chokehold in 1994. Ms. Baez, welcome to our intergenerational panel, and please tell us your
Thank you.
story. Please tell us your story of what happened that day and what you did about it.
Well, when I found out that my son was murdered by a police officer, I was in shock. And then he was playing football with his three other brothers. And there was always cars in front of my house. So I figured we were safe because of the other cars were there. And because there was always a policeman in front of my house. So I thought my kids were safe. And but what I found out was that's their hangout, and with the prostitute around, that was a hot prostitute area, and they hanged out there with the prostitutes. So when he choked my son, my kids were saying, let him go. My husband was yelling, let him go. He's a sick man, so he could let him go. But then we went to the courthouses, and then, and Daisy Boria was the woman who came at last. And then they told her to put him in her car. And they were there before her, but they told her, because she was a woman, to put her in her car. And then she put him in the car. Then they told her, take him to the precinct. And then he said, but look at him. He got to go to the hospital. Then the sergeant kept on saying, take him to the precinct. So when on her way to the precinct, she took him to the hospital. And over there, they pronounced him that he was gone. Then they arrested my other sons, and they took him to the precinct. But when they found out that that Tony had passed away, they took them they were in 46 precinct, then they changed him to 48 precinct, where it's totally far away from my house. And then I came home. When I got there, the kids told me what had happened. And then I said, wait a minute, if my son murdered a cop, my son would be in jail. So why isn't this police officer in jail? And then I went through the system, and that's how I learned all the abuse in the system, all the racism. I didn't know there was racism in New York City, because I live in my pink little bubble, but that he popped the bubble. So when I found out that Anthony was gone, I said, so what are we gonna do about it? And then all the pastors came to my house, and they said, we do whatever you want. So I said, well, we have to let the neighborhood know what happened. And, we have to get this police officer in jail. So Daisy Bodia had, when the judge Shangling, when we went to court, he said there was a nest of perjury, but he didn't say what nest of perjury. The sergeant that was there at the time, Lavodi was driving the sergeant, because he was mandated that he could not have contact with the community. So he was a driver at the time for his sergeant. Then one of the judges, Judge Roberts, threw out the case because he said my son was obese. Then we brought it back again, and then the other judge said that he had to he was not guilty. And then the third judge, Judge Shanling, said, you're not innocent of this, but I have to let you go. And it was all like political, but at the same time, it was like the union that nobody never hold them accountable. It was pulling all the strings. And then when we went through that court, I remember that morning I went to court. I remember there were helicopters, a lot of police cars, and I told my husband, oh my God, it looked like they killed somebody around here, because there was so many police and all these helicopters flying around the courthouse. And then we went inside, everybody sat down, and the judge said, you're not innocent of this crime, but I have to let you go, and like I I passed out. They took me to the hospital. The next morning, I said, wait a minute. No, that police officer's got to go to jail. But at the same time, we had sent well, Richie Perez had sent the FBI a note, from in my behalf, like, we want to have a sit down with you guys because something's happening in the Bronx. They're covering up this case. So there was an FBI in the courthouse at that time that the judge said that. So then it went, and then the federal picked it up. And then when they picked it up, they found him guilty, but not guilty of murdering my son. They found him guilty of violating his rights. And they also found perjury, but not to an extent that they could prosecute anybody else.
So let me jump in here. It's dramatic every time I hear the repeat of this. And I want to now advance up to our more modern chokehold, because now, as I said on my list, we started with Anthony as 5.0. And so now we're going to fast forward from 1994 all the way up to the Eric Garner case from 2014. So you see 20 years later, we're back in the same boat. So I'd like to
Politician.
Ms. Gwen Carr to the microphone. And first, could you tell us what you knew, if anything, about the Anthony Baez case, and then go into the story of how you learned what had happened to Eric?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Yes, I did know about the Anthony Baez case because it was well televised, and it was all over the place about what had happened to this young man. And at the time, I was just saying that is such a shame what they did, but never knowing it was going to happen to me also. But I was sympathizing with Iris, even though I didn't know her at the time. And who would have ever thought that we would have gotten to know each other through common ground? Okay, so now the day that my son was murdered, it was such a, I could replay it day, hour by hour, minute by minute. But I was at work when I got the call, but I didn't get the call. I got the call from someone who had heard that something was going on with Eric and the police. And they didn't have any firsthand information. So the next call I got, same thing, no firsthand information. They just heard that there was an interaction with Eric and the police. But this made me very anxious. So I immediately called my husband and told him, I knew my husband was in Brooklyn because he had gone to the doctor with my brother. And I said, could you go to Staten Island and find out what's happening with Eric? Because I just got such a bad feeling. Something has, something is just not right. So anyway, he says, okay. But then before I hung up, I said, no, just meet me at my job, pick me up, and then, we'll go there together. So he says, okay again. Now, when I got back to the depot, because I was a train operator, I operated the train from Coney Island Station, Coney Island Stillwell to Queens. And so I was all the way in Queens when I heard, but I thank God I didn't really know what happened at that point. But it was just these butterflies. I just had this feeling that it wasn't going to be pretty when I did find out what happened. So as I'm going home, as my husband came to the depot, picked me up, and we're going home, and I'm asking him, did you hear anything? Did anybody call you to tell you what happened to Eric? So anyway, he said, somebody's talking. He says, oh, well, we'll find out when we get to Staten Island. But then the calls kept on coming to him. They wasn't coming to me anymore. They were coming to him. And I said, what are those calls about? And I just kept badgering him so bad. What's going on? Do they know anything about Eric? So finally, he just couldn't hold it any longer. And he just told me, he says, well, Eric is no longer with us. And at that moment, I think I just lost my mind. What do you mean that he's no longer with us? He says, he had it's the police. He said, I don't know the details, but when we're gonna go, he said, but I was trying to kick the windshield out. I was trying to get out the door, but he had made sure that I was in my seatbelt, and he had put the child lock on my side of the door so I couldn't get out. And after that, I just tried to push that door open. So I thought I could run to Staten Island faster than I could actually get there in that car. But when I got there, I was so messed up, they wouldn't even let me go to the hospital to see what had actually happened. My husband and some of my family members just took me straight to the house. And that evening is the first time that I had really knew, at the time, it didn't matter how he died. It was just a matter that he was gone. My son is gone. But when I found out that the police had choked him to death and that the Daily News had coverage, play by play on what actually happened because of Ramsey Otto, he had took the video. He is actually my hero, because without that video, we wouldn't have knew any detail, because they had already lied on official reports. The police had said that they had a confrontation with Eric, and Eric fell to the ground with a heart attack. They, telling all kind of lies, which would have stuck if there wasn't actual footage on what actually happened. Well, those were some very, very dark days for me. And then afterwards, to add insult to injury, when there was the grand jury, when the video showed blatantly that my son was choked to death by this police officer who had no concern for his life. And then the grand jury, they failed to indict. How could you fail to indict? I mean, the evidence are there, and an indictment is not a conviction. It is just to show that there was some injustice done there. So we're going to kick it up to the courts. But they would not even indict him. But then the federal government took over, and they did kick it up and said that, no, we're going to investigate, because they knew that it was wrong. But we went through 3 administrations going back and forward to court. I mean, not to court, but to a hearing with them. And they said, oh, we're turning over every stone. We're going to make sure that everything is right. And ultimately, on the 5th year, they came back with, oh, we're not going further with this case. They was going to drop the ball. I was so furious on that day, I couldn't hardly talk. But after I caught my composure, I said, well, you may not be going further, but I am. And that's how we got the court, the departmental trial. The departmental trial, where a lot of stuff was brought out that even myself, would have never known. We found about all the lies, all the charges that they were going to put on Eric. They was going to put a tobacco charge on him. They did put a tobacco charge on him, which indicated that he had more than 25,000 cigarettes on him at the time. And then the other officer, Bannon, he was the commanding officer at the time. And when Officer D'Amico texted him and said that Eric was probably was DOA at the scene, Bannon said, it's not a big deal. All of this came out in court because it was caught on the cell phones where he had texts. And we found out about the police officers, the ones they pounced on him, some lied, some looked the other way. So there were several officers that should have been charged that day. They should have been immediately fired, but that did not happen. I had to wait 5 years for one officer, just one officer, to be fired. And he's trying to sue for his job back. But I hope, heaven knows, I just hope that never happens. And I'm still trying to get the other officers off the force. They say they're not going to go forward with any other charges of the officers. But I says, you know, a lot of things that you're not going forward with, but I am. You know, I may not be the law, but you know, I'm going to try to get the law enforced. So now that's what's happening with me. I'm trying to get it where we can go back, which we did get the judge to say that we are going to have another hearing, because as Ms. Baez said, there was a nest of lies when my son was murdered, and it was a cover-up. And I want to uncover all these lies. Everything they want to sweep under the rug, I want to get from under the rug, very dirty under that rug. And
That's right.
We are seeking justice. Can't hear you.
Yes, so I'm saying thank you for that story. We're still pushing for justice. It's not over by
Not-
any means. So now we'd like to shift into the second phase, and that is that these are the exact kinds of conditions that led to the formation of the Black Panther Party and also to the Young Lords. And so Brother BJ has already spoken on that as a veteran, as a community worker, but now we want to turn to the Young Lords, who are participating in the festival will learn about through the first Rainbow Coalition, because the Young Lords combined with the Black Panther Party in Chicago and the Young Patriots White Organization in order to work in unity. But that wasn't the only place. So I want to turn to Carlito Rovira, who is a veteran of the Young Lords. So tell us how you got into the party and about interactions with the Black Panther Party and other allies during your experiences.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to express my continuous condolences to Ms. Gwen Carr and to Edith Baez, because as a parent myself, you know, losing a child in that kind of way is it's enough to make you go ballistic, and I'll leave it at that. I guess that the best way to sum up the experiences of the Young Lords is that when Puerto Ricans first came here, we were very blind to the realities of what it was like in the birthplace of white supremacy. When Puerto Ricans came here, no matter how white you look, or just like how black you look, you received the same type of persecution as African Americans, as Black people. And that social reality presented us with a new affinity, and that was towards African Americans. You know, I recall when I was a child, about 7 or 8 years old. You know, these guys in these black guys, tall black guys with bow ties, knocking on the door. My mother didn't speak English, and neither did my father, so they used to send me to open the door. And it was the Nation of Islam trying to politicize the newly arrived Puerto Rican immigrants. In 1968, I was busy running the streets, sniffing glue, doing this, doing that. I shouldn't have been doing. And Black Panther Party leader, Bob Collier, saved my life. He put me under his wing. And he encouraged me to go on a trip to Denver, Colorado. And he was there where I met Cha-Cha Jimenez. Yeah. When I came back to New York, it was a no-brainer. I was going to join the New York chapter of the Young Lords. And that's when I met some of the dopest people, you know, that I ever met in my life. Some have changed, yes, you know, but we give. I gotta say that, you know, some of those revolutionaries got corrupted. They got bought. You know, what's black don't stay black. If it don't work, I'm staying black. Okay. That's right. You know, and some became politicians, some became journalists, some became celebrities. You know, I chose to stay in the fight.
Yes.
And I always tell everybody, the organization may not exist today, but I'm still a Young Lord. There's nothing X about me but my ex-wife. Right. Okay. and
So let
and
me
so
let me ask you this. So talk about the alliances, the same way that the first Rainbow Coalition set examples. How what alliances, if any, happened between you and the party, Black Panther Party, and others?
well, the Black Panther Party taught us everything. Okay, there isn't anything that you cannot that you could say around me and around some other former young lords, anything negative about the Black Panther Party, because we'll bite your head off. The Black Panther Party really introduced us and made us adept to the politics of the United States. And they did that through the free breakfast programs, through the free serve the people programs. But most important of all, they taught us that we need to patrol our own neighborhoods. And it's not against black and black or brown on brown crimes, but we need to protect our neighborhoods, patrol them, and stop the police when they become ready to abuse our people. You know, and it is a formula that is still applicable today. And it is the reason why they continue to persecute the Black Panther Party, because the truth that they developed is something that is still applicable today. You see, I don't believe, just like we didn't believe in back in the days, we don't believe that there's such a thing as bad cops and good cops. There's an institution, okay? An institution that began during slavery, okay? And it's not that they are under-trained or not trained properly. On the contrary, they are trained correctly. They are trained to do what they do. These chokeholds is part of their training, okay? It's like somebody telling me, well, we need to, train better the Green Berets, the special forces. Are you out of your mind? Those are trained assassins. They are trained to do what they do. Well, the police, since the time of slavery, have been trained to torture escaped slaves. They've been trained to terrorize the African-American community, and now the brown community, okay?
Yes.
So, for the notion that they are not trained properly, that we need to reform the police, to me, it's an absurdity. It's an absurdity because you do not train a horse to become a bird. That is impossible. So the Panther Party, what they did was they brought and they trained us in this line of thinking, that what we need to do is we need to master not only the politics of the rulers and develop it better than they do, but we need to also develop the tactics, because a people's movement, an organized people's movement, is the only thing that's going to stop police brutality, the murders of our people. When we march them into a tribunal and try them for their crimes, that is what's going to stop it. The same way that the police were stopped in Cuba. Okay,
Carlito, you're fired up, and you always are ahead of the curve, because our last part is going to be on what is to be done, and you're already calling out the tactics that need to be done. So that's perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a quick identification. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the 12th annual Black Panther Party Film Festival. Our host is Maysles Cinema, who have been our home for all of these years. And normally we'd be sitting there and get ready to have a great party downstairs right after this with food, beverages, music, and the whole thing. So we're just going to have to, just virtually raise glasses to each other. The event started on Sunday, October 4th. It's going to be going until the end of the month. We're highlighting Every Mother's Son, the story about police brutality cases. That's why we have Ms. Baez, who was the star of that movie. Then also My People Are Rising, about the story of the captain and founder of the Seattle Black Panther Party chapter, the first Rainbow Coalition, which talks about the Chicago Black Panther Party, Young Lords and Young Patriots, and how they all allied in order to fight police brutality back in the day. And then Cruel and Unusual, which tells the story of 3 of our political prisoners, the Angola 3, and their issues inside a prison in solitary confinement for years and years, as so many others. And before we shift into part 3, I have to do my pitch.
Let me add something.
Well, let me do the
Can
pitch
I add
first.
something, King?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, people don't know it, but Jesse Jackson didn't start the Rainbow Coalition.
Yes,
If you watch
thank
this
you.
film,
Right.
you'll see who started the Rainbow Coalition. Fred Hampton and the Young Lords and the Young Patriots. So Jesse Jackson stole that name. Go ahead, King.
Don't leave out the Iwakun.
Ah.
There you go.
Uh-huh. So he not only stole it, where he called his, and he was in Chicago at the time, and you'll see in the film there are times when he's sitting there in support of the coalition as a minister, not as an organizer or the foundation, but as a minister supporting it, and heard those words and then turned around and changed it from I am a revolutionary to I am somebody. Now that's a demotion from I am a revolutionary to I am somebody. You can be somebody, and you can be a counter-revolutionary and be somebody, but that's for another time. Let me get to the commercial. The reason why we are here is because we are raising money for the commissary of the political prisoners. So we're not only holding their memory alive, but we're putting our money, and we're asking you to put your money where their mouths are, where their commissary is. And so we're asking you to go to the National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party. BJ and I are both members of that organization, and they are hosting our donation page as co-sponsors of this event. And so we're asking you to go to naabpp.org. Maybe BJ, you'll put that in the chat. Go there and click on it, and you can make you can make an online donation to this cause, naabpp.org. And there are also ways that you can send in money orders, you can send in checks, or any other kinds of ways that you want to make that payment. That's the important focus that we don't want to lose. Now we're going to move into the third section, because we've talked about the conditions with Ms. Baez and Ms. Carr that led to the creation of these organizations. Now we are at the point where we're going to talk about the consequences of the representatives of those organizations joining the struggle against those conditions and the consequences that they paid. And those are the political prisoners. And so the focus of Cruel and Unusual is on the Angola 3, but there are many others around the country, including, when we circle back around, we're going to come back to Carlito, because we don't want to leave out the Latinx political prisoners who also contributed to this story. But we're going to turn to a particular group who came out of Omaha. And to do that, we have Sandy Shevack, who's here with us, who's going to tell us about their particular circumstances, the conditions that caused them to join a formation, the actions they took, and the consequences that they paid. So Sandy, welcome to Maysles.
Thank you, King. I'm going to be talking about political prisoners.
Yes.
All right. And probably the world's best known political prisoner was Nelson Mandela. And I recall that when Nelson Mandela came to New York City, and I'm in Patterson and Passaic, right outside New York City. I recall, I think it was 1991, our politicians were tripping over each other, and these politicians had nothing to do with actually freeing him, most of them. Maybe at the end, okay? They were tripping over each other to shake his hand, to get photos with him. And there was a column in the New York Times by a former young lord. Help me out here. I forget his name, who was a columnist with the New York Daily News.
Juan Gonzalez.
Okay. Right, Juan Gonzalez. He wrote a column about political prisoners in the United States. That it's very easy to talk about political prisoners in other countries. Bring the issue home, and you'll see it. You see these politicians flying away. And Amnesty International won the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, if people don't know what Amnesty International is, it's an organization that was founded to investigate political prisoner cases throughout the world. And they have investigated. There are a list of names. Some people I'm going to name have passed away. Some are still in prison. Okay. Leonard Peltier, Amnesty International case. Mondo Ilanga, who passed away. One of the Omaha brothers. Edward Poindexter, still in prison after 50 years. Amnesty International case. Ben Chavis and the Wilmington 10. My former coworker, Martin Sastre, Amnesty International. Geronimo Pratt, and I believe the Angola 3 were also Amnesty International cases. These are cases that have been investigated. As an international body, they have told the United States government that these people need to be, quote, immediately released or retried. And the United States government has still kept them in prison. I think I mentioned Geronimo Pratt too. The Omaha case, I was a member of a student mobilization committee in SDS. I grew up with some of these cases. It's heartbreaking. After 50 years, that Amnesty International said, in particular, the case that I've been so involved with, Edward Poindexter, that Ramsey Clark, so many people have said that Ed Poindexter needs to be immediately released. Okay. And we're still at this stage. Okay. And the only reason is that he was a Panther.
So Sandy,
yeah.
Sandy, give us the background, how they got involved in the chapter, what happened to them, the charges they caught and all that. Yeah.
What happened was that there was a year or two before that, there was a 13-year-old girl who was shot by the police. And Ed Poindexter and Mondo Ilanga, previously known as David Rice, were started the Omaha chapter of the Black Panther Party. And they spoke out against police brutality. They spoke about, and both of them were activists. Ed was a Vietnam veteran. When he came home, he became active. Mondo Ilanga, David Rice was very active in community programs to educate young people, to empower them. And when they started the Black Panther Party, there was bombings going on throughout the Midwest. And people were not caught. There was a bombing in Omaha, and what happened was the police officers were lured to a house that had a bomb. The bomb went off, and a police officer was killed. They did not know who did it, but they immediately said Black Panther Party. They got a 15-year-old named Dwayne Peak, who changed the story numerous times that he was really pressured. They said they were going to put him in the electric chair unless he identifies Ed Poindexter and David Rice, Mondo Ilanga, as the two people who constructed the bomb. The search warrants David was not in his house at the time, and they said, we found the dynamite. Okay. No serial numbers were ever handed over as to could have placed the origin of the dynamite. The case is riddled with inconsistencies. They maintain if they had actually admitted it, they probably would have gotten out long time ago. But both of them, Mondo Ilanga on his deathbed said, I did not do this. Ramsey Clark, the former governor of Nebraska, I forget his name.
Well, Ramsey Clark was the former attorney general who then began
of the United States.
Of the United States, who began to take up a lot of these kinds of cases. Go ahead.
Yes, he actually went out to Nebraska to meet with the families and meet with them. And where we're at now is Mondo Ilanga passed away in 2016. His ashes were taken to Tanzania, to Peter and Charlotte O'Neill's compound. Both of them were Black Panthers. I was there a week after some climbers took his ashes up to Mount Kilimanjaro and spread them as his last wish.
Beautiful.
All right.
Yeah, and Pete and Charlotte knew Mondo very well because the states were right close to each other, next to each other. And where we're at now is we're petitioning the government of Nebraska to release them. Ben Cheney, the brother of James Cheney, joined me and other folks to.
He was just to say he was the brother of the civil rights martyr.
Yes, James, Ben Cheney is the brother of civil rights martyr James Cheney, who, along with Mickey Schwerner and Andrew Goodman, were killed in 1960s.
Yeah.
And we had been, we worked to get the icons of the civil rights movement to stand up and say, look, time. These people need to be released. Right, they need to be released, and so many times we have approached so many news outlets, and it's always been interested, thumbs down. And
so I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna jump in at this point. Thank you for telling that story. The Omaha 2 is a long overlooked story, long overlooked, and we're going to do another partial round. I would like everybody to get ready in their minds to be able to let folks know how they can learn more about their particular situations, whether it's still a push for justice by murderous officers or on behalf of political prisoners, or to even learn about the Black Panther Film Festival and the Commemoration Committee. But I just have to let folks know you are part of our panel, the Maysles Cinema 12th Anniversary panel on political prisoners. And we have a host of people here, Sandy Shevack speaking about the Nebraska 2, Gwen Carr, Eric Garner's mother, Carlito Rovira, veteran of the Young Lords, William B.J. Johnson from the Film Festival and the Commemoration Committee, Baez, mother of Anthony Baez, and still fighting for justice on behalf of so many other families. Before we get into the last round, and Carlito, you're up next because we want to talk about the Latinx political prisoners and make sure that they get the kind of coverage too that we've given the other ones here. But I'm letting everybody know that the reason why we're here is to support the political prisoners and their struggles inside, not only morally and spiritually, but legally, but also financially. And a little bit of commissary goes a long way. You'd be amazed at what a small amount of money you may lose in your couch cushion could really help them with the situation they're dealing with inside, especially in this COVID era with all of that extra that's going on. So we're asking you to go to the NAABPP and make your donation online or by following the information to send a check or money order to that address on behalf of the 12th Annual Black Panther Film Festival to support their commissaries. And BJ told the stories earlier about that. And also the P.O. box is also listed there if you go to the chat. I'm also going to be looking to take questions as we get to the end. So if you have a question, just go into the chat and please add whatever you'd like to ask and make sure you tell me who you would like to ask it to. So Carlito Rovira, veteran of the Young Lords Party, tell us about the political prisoner situation with the Latinx community.
Latino, I don't use that X part.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you're an O. So what do the Latinas have to say? That's easy for you to say.
Most Latinos that I know don't know about that X part. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That was some NGO people that came up with that.
Okay. Well, the sisters.
That's another conversation.
But the sisters pushed it on me, so that's how I changed. I hope. All right. Anyway, let's go.
Whatever. I got nothing but good news.
Good.
There was Lolita Lebron. There was Oscar Rafael Cancel Miranda. Mm-hmm. There was the nationalist political prisoners that were freed. Mm-hmm. There was the 30 political prisoners, 16 of which were given clemency by Bill Clinton. Right. Oscar Lopez mm-hmm. Recently came out. The Cuban Five also came out. And there's a connection with all of them, including Ana Belén, who's coming out next year. Ana Belén, for those who don't know, she was a Puerto Rican sister who was working for the NSA. And she was admittedly giving information to the Cuban government. Okay. and was allowing them to know some of the subversive activity of the United States government against Cuba. Well, she is coming out next year, and the connection between all of them is that people raised hell to get them out. That's the connection. Okay, if Latinos did not take the Statue of Liberty and put out a giant Puerto Rican flag on the head of the Statue of Liberty, they were doing some other stuff. Okay, because when it comes to our political prisoners, we act stupid. Okay, we get crazy and we start doing all kinds of stuff, and that is the disposition that we have to take, because ultimately, all of those brothers and sisters in the penitentiaries of this country are also political prisoners. Okay, some of them are in there because they did dumb things, but this society lures people, to do things and end up in prisons. And our disposition as progressives, as revolutionaries, is that none of our people should be in jail, just as much as none of our people should be killed by the police. If anything, because I am not against the existence of prisons. Okay, I'm not against having political prisoners, but let's be clear who those political prisoners need to be, and it should be those killer cops. They need to be in prisons. Those politicians, these corrupt politicians from both parties, not just the Republicans, but the Democrats too, because they're there to screw us just as much as the Republicans. They should be the ones behind those bars. So when we talk about what is it that we need to do to prevent police brutality, which is no different than preventing political prisoners, we need to raise hell. And we cannot raise hell effectively unless we create a fighting movement, just the same way we had it in the 1960s.
There you go. That's the point right there. That's the way that we should wrap it all up. But what I want to do is go around, and I would like each person to talk about whatever formations they're involved in now and how people can get in contact with them in order to support their continued efforts for justice. And I'm going to start with Iris Baez. How can people reach you, and how can people support the work you're doing now to fight against this police brutality?
They could reach me at the Justice Committee.
justicecommittee.org.
Wait a minute, let me get the card. I put the card down. Oh my God.
Take your time. Take your time.
Okay.
Ms. Baez has been a part of the Justice Committee. She mentioned Richie Perez, also.
Richie Perez.
Yeah.
When we took over the DA's office, we closed the building down.
That's how you do
the
it.
Mothers.
Richie Perez, presente.
That's right, presente.
Presente everywhere.
Okay.
He was present and still is.
It still is. So that's the Justice Committee. You can look that up, justicecommittee.org.
Justice Committee.
Full disclosure,
And,
I'm a member of that organization as well. So that's how people can reach out to you.
Can reach out to me.
They have a lot of things going on. Ms. Carr, how can people support your continuing efforts for justice and your recent court victory in getting the information turned over that you wanted, even though I heard that hearing and the city made the lamest excuses, said, we're not obligated to do an investigation when one of our police kills somebody. You should have heard that.
That's crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah, well, it's a crazy group.
Yes. Yes.
So, yes, to support me, I have an organization called GoneAwayFoundation.org. And we continue to fight for justice. We continue to try to console the grieving mothers and families. And also I have a book out. The book is called This Stops Today. And I would appreciate if everybody on this who's looking at us in the audience would buy the book. It's a call to action. It talks about my life. Hillary Clinton, she wrote my foreword. And I just think that it will give you some good information about what I did, what I'm doing, and what I will do for the rest of my life.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. So, Carlito, he hasn't said anything about this. He's kind of modest about it, but he is a booyah visual artist, a booyah painter. So tell folks how they can keep track of you and also see your magnificent works of some of our freedom fighters and other influential people in the movement.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a revolutionary artist. I do landscapes. I do mostly portraitures, but the characters that I paint are people who kill oppressors. Plain and simple. Okay, those are the people, the heroes, the people's heroes, and people's heroes kill oppressors. Okay, I haven't painted anyone that hasn't picked up a gun at some point in their lives. Okay, I paint figures like Malcolm X. I paint figures like Lolita Lebron, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro. Those are my heroes. Okay, and that's who I paint.
Yeah, but who is your latest one? And tell us, since it's appropriate for the topic today.
I just recently painted Mutulu Shakur, Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who's a political prisoner, and it's for an event that's going to take place in November 10th. And I believe it's going to happen at the People's Church on 111th Street and Lexington Avenue. And Dr. Mutulu Shakur is a Black nationalist who pioneered, that's right, pioneered in the use of acupuncture for drug addiction, for healing, curing drug addiction and other ailments. That's how much he loved his people, that he took his profession and he used it for the benefit of oppressed people. I also co-host La Voz Latina on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York. And we have a show on Sundays, and we just tear the rags off of the system. That's what we talk about. We don't talk about coquis and butterflies and palm trees in Puerto Rico. No. We talk about how is it that we need to get together and fight these bastards.
Yes.
And if you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Facebook, Carlito Rovira. And I'm also a blog. I have a blog where I write my articles, and it's Carlito Rovira. And my email is CarlitoBoricua@Yahoo, CarlitoBoricua@Yahoo.com.
What time is your radio show?
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock on Sundays.
2 p.m. on Sunday. So check it out. Oh, so also, would you put your email address into the chat so that people can get it? Can you put it in the chat while we're still going on here? Great. Carlito Rovira. Now, let's go on to Sandy Shevack. How can people learn about the Nebraska 2 and also the work that you're doing on other political prisoner cases and in general?
You could contact, I teach at a couple of colleges, but you could reach me at William Patterson University, my last name and S at WPUNJ.edu. But you look up the university and I'm under the sociology department.
Okay. Could you also
you look up, you Google Edward Poindexter, Omaha, Nebraska, and you're going to get all kinds of up-to-date information.
There you go.
As past information on the case.
Yes, and please, if you can, put that into the chat too. Our whole goal here is to get people to support the movements of these families of the present day and to also support the political prisoners who took action against the families on behalf of the families in their day. And so that's why we're here. That's why we do the festival. All right, BJ, I'm going to put it to you. Folks have a last chance to go to NAABPP. Make us proud. Our goal is to see the kind of contributions that we get towards the commissary. That's how we judge the success of this event. Even though viewers seeing films, filmmakers who normally wouldn't get a place, you won't find them on PBS and those kinds of places, They have a home here thanks to Maysles, but our real proof of our action and of our political work is to see that the political prisoners get the support they deserve. So go to NAABPP, please, and make your donation. BJ, you have the last word here.
You did it. There's nothing I can say, but
Oh, please. There's always something you can say, please.
I would like to, we have a question from one of our panelists.
Oh, okay.
And Carlito talked more about his connection to Bob Collier, who was part of the Panther 21 case. Yeah. This kid is, Bob was his godfather.
You want me to give something real brief?
Quickly,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Bob Collier was a saint. You know, if I would say he had a halo if I was religious, but I'm not. Okay, but if I was, the man would have a halo on his head because he saved a lot of us in the Lower East Side. You know, he brought a lot of brothers under his wing and sisters too, and he politicized them. And thanks to Bob Collier, I joined the Young Lords because, as I mentioned before, I was getting in trouble. I could have been dead from a cop shooting me, or I could have ended up doing a life sentence in prison. But thanks to Bob Collier, he put me on a bus that sent me to Denver, Colorado, to the very first Chicano moratorium. And it was there that I met young lords like Iris Morales, Chacha Jimenez, and others. And when I came back, I was a completely different person, and I will always be eternally grateful to the memory of Bob Collier. He was a true Black Panther.
All right, right on.
Camilo, thanks for that question. I'm going to follow up with you. I had no idea that he was your godfather, so that's even more reason for me to connect back with you and build with you. Even more.
Let me give you another thing. This is Atno's son.
Yes, yes, that I knew.
How you doing, brother?
Yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate that. So we're good. We thank you all for being part of us. You know, I believe in ending on time and under budget. So we were clocked to go out at 7:15. We have a minute left, and we're going to thank everybody for being on the panel. Baez, Gwen Carr, Carlito Rovira, and Sandy Shevack, all for your important work. Of course, BJ and the Black Panther Film Festival Commemoration Committee organizers, all the people who've been doing the work, whose names aren't mentioned here and who you don't see, who have been holding us up through all of these years. And we're going to be back around for number 13. Please go on and check out the films. That's the important part of it. And
exactly.
Send us your comments, make your donations to NAABPP, or follow the link here in the chat for mailing a check or money order. That's going to be our proof. I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll be back with a fury next year. Keep an eye out for us and have a great day. Stay safe from the COVID and the police pandemic.
King, one last announcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am working with BJ in putting together a art exhibit.
Beautiful.
Where the proceeds will be going to the to this effort.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you'll have your chance to grab some beautiful paintings and go check out his site to see how good his work is. Good night, everybody.
King,
yeah.
King, wait a minute.
Oh, hold on. Okay.
I want to do a shout out to my cousin Fred Lane, who's on there. He was sick for a while. I hope you're feeling better, Fred.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Best of health to you, and thank you to everybody else who tuned in. It's you all that make us do what we do. Have a great night, everybody.
I see you, Duke Sensei.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Miss Carr.
Good night.
Good night, Sandy.
Good night.
Good night, Iris. We sound like the Waltons. Come on.
Good night, John Boy.
Yeah. Shout out to Sensei.
Sensei.
Yay.